Thursday evening to you, and welcome back to Closing Arguments. I'm Julie Grant. I'm sitting in tonight and tomorrow night for my friend Vinny Politan, who is on assignment for his brand new Court TV series, Accomplice to Murder. Be sure to check it out Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And we have a great hour planned for you. We start this hour with a fascinating case happening in Boston. It involves the murder of a Boston police officer, and the officer's girlfriend, Karen Reed, is the accused. But she says she's being framed. In January of last year, Boston police officer John O'Keefe's body was found bruised and frozen on the lawn of his fellow Boston cop, Brian Albert. Now, prosecutors say it was Reed who killed him by backing into him with her SUV and then leaving him to die in the snow. And police explained the damage to her taillight and said it was consistent with markings on his body, and that O'Keefe had never even entered the home where a big police house party was going on. But the defense team says, oh no, it's all a cover-up. They say that while Reed and O'Keefe did get into a fight that night, that she dropped him off at the house party. And the defense team believes that there was a fight inside that home, some kind of altercation in which John O'Keefe got hurt and was left for dead out in the snow. Now, on April 26, Karen Reed's lawyers announced some bombshell evidence. In a press release, they stated, quote, "We've discovered that Jennifer McCabe, homeowner Brian Albert's sister-in-law, was searching on her phone how long to die in cold on January 29, 2022 at 2:27 a.m. The prosecution has maintained that John O'Keefe's body was not discovered in Brian Albert's yard until about 6 a.m., some 3.5 hours later. As we stress in the motion, there is simply no innocent explanation for McCabe's search at that time. The evidence unequivocally exonerates Karen Reed because it establishes that individuals who were in the house at 34 Fairview that night were aware that John was dying in the snow before Karen even knew that he was missing. Now, in addition to that very incriminatory Google search, Reed's attorneys also discovered that they apparently deleted 18 calls from that night, as well as 7 phone calls between Albert and McCabe. The defense attorneys concluding in the press release saying that they were looking forward to presenting this exculpatory evidence at a pretrial hearing on May 3rd. May 3rd came and went. And while the defense did present some compelling evidence for the court, these new details were shockingly never mentioned.
Second undisputed fact, when John O'Keefe was found, he had this set of wounds on his right arm. And the Commonwealth looks at these wounds and says, there's nothing to see here. This is just a road rash. Does this look like a road rash? Of course this doesn't look like a road rash. It's not a road rash that any of us have ever seen. Or does it look more like claw marks and bite marks from an animal? In February of 2017, we know that the Alberts had a dog. By May of 2022, Karen Reed's defense team starts asking questions about this animal. That same month, amazingly, the Alberts informed the Cat and Animal Control that the dog was remarkably and mysteriously rehomed. The dog was gotten rid of.
Regarding the Canton Library video, this court should know we still do not have relevant time periods. In the video that the prosecution turned over to us, there is a gap in that video from 12:37 a.m. to 12:39 a.m., which would have been the precise time my client would have been driving back past the library. We know that that footage would show that my client's taillight was still intact at that point because she never struck John O'Keefe with her vehicle. Yet the prosecution has produced a video from the library with that crucial time period missing.
But if John O'Keefe was beaten unconscious in, for instance, the basement of that house, and later moved to the front yard after the guests left, there's your answer as to why no one saw him. Why would Brian Albert rip out the floor of his basement months after John O'Keefe was killed? The second question, why would he sell his house? So in the months following John O'Keefe's death, the dog has been gotten rid of. Got rid of the evidence in the basement. Got rid of the house, the crime scene itself. Your Honor, I would submit to the court that evidence is literally being destroyed right under our nose.
Prior to today, the defense had issued some subpoenas requesting that Brian Albert and his sister-in-law Jennifer McCabe appear in court so they could question them at a hearing that was scheduled for tomorrow. They were saying that they wanted to dig into the exonerating phone evidence, and the defense also planning to bring in a data extraction expert as well. In the hearing that happened today, Judge Beverly Canone quashed those two subpoenas and canceled tomorrow's hearing. With the defense team clearly frustrated, let's take a listen to some of what happened in the courtroom and some of the press conference afterward.
Brian Albert is integrally involved in the death of John O'Keefe. He is implicated in the death of John O'Keefe. Jennifer McCabe is equally implicated in the death of John O'Keefe and the subsequent cover-up of that death. We are entitled to defend our client. It couldn't be more specific, our request. It couldn't be more narrowly tailored. And we couldn't need it more. It couldn't be more necessary for Karen Reed to defend herself. She's entitled to this information. She's constitutionally entitled to defend herself, and she's constitutionally entitled to this information. We can't just walk into court, Your Honor, at a trial and start spewing things that we think might be true. We know them to be true. We have to have evidence to back those statements up. We need to prove it. We have the ability to prove these facts. And that's why we're asking for these products, these things, and these records. Okay. It's frustrating because she should be exonerated. What the Commonwealth should do is walk into the courtroom and say, you know what, we got it wrong. Mea culpa, we got it wrong. And we're going to go out and find the actual people who did this. That's what they should be doing. That's my frustration.
So is this a cover-up, and if so, who's leading the cover-up?
Your guess is as good as mine. That's what we're trying to figure out. That's exactly what we're trying to figure out.
Who do you think it is?
Well, certainly the Massachusetts State Police is involved. There are people that were in that house that are involved. Brian Albert is involved. Jennifer McCabe is involved. The rest of the folks that were in that house, there's some level of involvement by every one of them. Every single one of them. And until we're not going to rest until we get to the bottom of exactly who's behind this cover-up. Because not only Karen Reed deserves this. John O'Keefe deserves this.
Said it feels we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. Just feels like no one else wants it.
Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Oh, they are fired up. And guess who else is fired up? Our think tank. The prosecution's case just might get destroyed tonight. What a power panel I have with me on the couch. Let me bring them all in. Big welcome sitting next to me. Criminal defense investigator Charles Middlestad is here. Next to him, criminal defense attorney, Emory University law professor, and Georgia Innocence Project board member Molly Parmer. And next to her, criminal defense attorney Josh Schiffer. Welcome to you all. Oh boy, let's get talking. Okay, can we start with what a blow this was today, the quashing of the subpoenas? Boy, does that stink. Almost as bad as the facts of this case stink. Josh Schiffer.
We talk all the time about how trials in criminal justice is so often a quest to hide something. And it's an exercise in what are we going to let a jury actually see? That was today. The defense stood up and said, hey, we know there's this evidence out there. It's cell phone evidence from the other people at the party. It's integral to our client's defense. If you guys really want the truth, you gotta let us inspect this data.
Right.
And the judge turned around and shut them down. I am flabbergasted. I would be as uproariously angry as counsel was. I'm shocked that the truth is being stymied here by the state in what really looks like a cover-up now.
Right. Molly, tell me, does it look like the defense is going to have to kind of take the long way home, so to speak? You know, they wanted to get these two in for this hearing at this very early stage of the proceedings, but if it's not going to happen, do you think they're going to have to wait till trial for it to happen?
Well, you know, of course the defense doesn't have the same powers as does the state. A defense attorney has to have a hearing to even issue a subpoena and ask for records. So without another hearing, I mean, I know there is one coming up soon, but if you've just had them quashed by the judge, the opportunities for the defense are far more limited. And so what I think is really interesting here is the media strategy. I mean, that's what the defense is trying to do. I think the press conference was incredibly effective. I think Karen Reed is innocent. And I think they believe this with all of their hearts. And what they can do at this point is stand on the courthouse steps and share what they know with the public if inside the courtroom that's not going to be allowed.
That's right, Molly. Yeah, I'm with you. I know a lot of our courties think so too. They think that this is an innocent woman who's being framed and just outnumbered. Every time at Charles Middlestead she goes to court, the courtroom is packed with a sea of police. You know, and I'm very pro-police. I love our police. I'm so grateful for them. But I think every good cop I know would agree with the next statement I'm about to make. There's nothing worse than a dirty cop. You know, I'll take a criminal all day long before a dirty cop, right? Because they're held to a higher standard. And if that's what's going on here, I mean, how is this going to come down, Charles, like a house of cards? If this defense team is right, and that maybe those bite marks we're looking at right there might have been from a dog, you know, in the house or from a fight, you know, who knows? If they're right, I mean, what might happen there to this department?
Well, sadly, Julie, we're not talking potentially about a dirty cop. We may be talking about several dirty cops, because if this is what the defense suspects it is and what they're alleging it is, then there's a conspiracy here. And the evidence that they articulated a good faith basis for getting access to is the type of evidence that can be very, very compelling, because it's digital evidence and it's going to force certain individuals to answer very, very hard questions, because that evidence is going to be irrefutable in terms of phone calls that were made, phone calls that were placed, received, different research that was done, Google searches, things of that nature, that there is no way to explain away. And they need the ability to, they need access to that discovery, to that evidence, in order to put the pressure and identify. As an investigator, this is exactly the kind of evidence that I rely on to determine, like, who are the first 5 people they spoke to, develop their identities, interview those folks. What did you talk about? Right. What was the conversation like? What was that person's demeanor? What was going on?
Right.
And you build a timeline, and that timeline is ultimately what you can't push back on, because it is irrefutable. You have to explain these details.
Sure, appreciate it. Josh Schiffer, let me go to you on this one, please. I keep thinking about these prosecutors, and what do they know? Because that's a tough position to be in, right? Because sometimes stuff goes on and you have no idea. The case gets in your lap and you're trusting that someone else did an honest investigation. You're trusting that they vetted every story and left no stone unturned, and you're just trying to be a minister of justice. But here, I mean, I'm just like, do they not see what might be happening?
And like good cops, good prosecutors get angry when they see that kind of corruption. Or even, there's a phrase I love, the mere appearance of impropriety. Whenever you see something that just doesn't pass the smell test, and that's what we've got here. And good prosecutors get angry, they get motivated, because they're out there, the best prosecutors out there are fixing and healing America one case at a time. And they want nothing more than to instill integrity back into a police department that, unfortunately, it has a history. This is not the first time Boston police have been wrapped up in some stuff that didn't pass the smell test. And I'm telling you, from the outside looking in, I can see how this case unfolds, how the scapegoat, Miss Reed, gets picked, and how this case proceeds to right now. I wish nothing but the best for her defense team. They've got a hard fight.
Definitely. And let's talk more about that. Molly, let me ask you, please, if you were on this defense team, what, if anything else, might you do to try to defend Karen Read? And also, like you touched on, what they're doing there on the courthouse steps today in speaking out. What are the things you would do in court and out of court to help her?
I think that what they are doing, this aggressive defense approach, is what they have to do at this point. But I think we also have to remember that attorneys, we're counselors. That word, I take that literally. And you're standing beside a woman who lost the love of her life, who is being falsely accused, and who is going through this process probably as shocked and appalled as the rest of us, that this is how it's unfolding. So I think there's a lot of emotional work that they're having to do with her and her family and all of her supporters that are there alongside those police that we see inside all of these hearings as well. There's a lot of work beyond just litigating the case.
You're right.
You're helping the people who are accused.
You're right. Yeah, she went through a trauma. That's one thing to remember, too. You know, she might be a defendant, but she was traumatized without question, trying to save his life, trying to do CPR at the end of all of that. We're going to keep a close eye. The hearing tomorrow has been canceled, so we'll keep you posted on the next court date.